So let's go in back under our hosted zones. We're going to go in here, and because we have our health checks created, now we're going to go through the process of creating the routes that give us the failover and the latency checking that we need. So let's go ahead and create a record set. Now we want to have api.demo.cloudproject.dev take the user to the route that is best for them. So we need to create one of these for each of our endpoints. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and set one for api-us-east-1.demo.cloudproject.dev. And so this is the endpoint that we had previously. We're going to just map it with the CNAME. A couple of things to consider. First, we need to think about TTL. We're going to want this to be at maximum 60 seconds. Now, why is this important? This is something you need to understand when you're thinking about DNS for this kind of configuration in general. DNS does not update automatically. Each record generally has a TTL. In this case, we're saying if you have fetched DNS within the last 60 seconds, use the previous value that was returned. So if we had, during those 60 seconds, something fail, users could be sent to an endpoint that's no longer active. Now, that's great because you say, well, that's only 60 seconds. Pretty quickly, it will correct itself. Just as a caveat, not every system actually respects the TTL the way that it should. So there are some cases when even though you've set 60 seconds, something might not refetch the DNS within that time. So this is just something to be aware of. There are different approaches that you can take to be able to not have to rely on DNS for this kind of routing. And I'll point some links to you guys if you're interested in that. But you need to understand that that is a limitation. However, what this does is this still allows you to get the full benefit of using API Gateway and using it through Route 53. So there's pluses and minuses with each approach. Now we need to change this routing policy to latency. And we're going to go ahead and specify a region for this. In this case, we're going to specify this as US East 1, and we are just call this our US East 1 route, API route. Perfect. Actually, let's go ahead and move that back down to 60, and I'm just going to copy this for our next record. And we want to say associate with health check. This is, as I mentioned, you can only select one health check per route that you configure. So again, if you need it to take in multiple, there's a way you can create what's called a combined health check. So now that we have that in place, let's just go ahead and create this. So there we go. We have one record in place for API. We're going to create another one, and this is going to be for the exact same domain, but what we're going to do is we're going to go in with that CNAME and set our TTL. We're going to go ahead and change this to be EU West 1, and we're going to change this to latency, and then we are going to specify that this is going to be EU West 1, and we'll call this EU West 1 route, API route. And then we want to associate this with the correct health check. So we're going to create that. The next thing we need to do is we need to create one more record set for our final endpoint. Again, this needs to be a CNAME. We're going to set our TTL to 1 minute, and we're going to go in and we're going to configure this to now be AP Southeast 1. Perfect. And next we're going to switch this to latency. We'll specify a region, AP Southeast 1, and then we're going to set our ID, AP Southeast 1 API route. And then we're going to associate this with a health check for AP Southeast 1. So now we're going to create it. Now we have Route 53 properly configured to be able to route api.demo.cloudproject.dev to whichever endpoint is correct, right? Either to AP Southeast 1, EU West 1, US East 1. And it's also taking into account, we can see here that we have health checks associated with it that we have created previously.